Hi guys. Further on the topic of this like woke, this is why I am so anti-woke. Okay, because it is hypocrisy at the highest magnitude. I'll give you an example of the Goon Squad. When you've been exposed to the other side of the coin, you see it for what it is. And let me just give you an example of the Goon Squad that was running around under Daniel Andrews' control when they basically had a license to do what they wanted. That then led to, well, it wasn't even that. That culture already existed. It was just that during COVID, the average person got to experience it for themselves. What everybody, all of us in the know, already knew was present. Anyway, there was this young, disenfranchised youth, for lack of a better way to put it. He was a misfit, no doubt about it. This guy was from the wrong side of the tracks, all that stuff, drugs, meth, GHB, grew up in and out of juvenile detention, stealing, car theft, bad, right? Bad. No doubt about it. Then one day he was driving around in a stolen car that had been linked to an armed robbery. It turns out it wasn't even him doing the armed robbery, and this is why RoboCop, this is why there are processes and procedures. We learnt all this long time ago. We learnt all this back in the 40s, 30s, 20s, all the way through, that we need these processes and procedures. We need to put it before a judge to test it, to have a thing called justice. Because in this one example, what looked like was a young misfit in a stolen car that had been linked to a drug dealer's house getting run through, but in the eyes of the law, it's still an violent aggravated burglary. Trust me, the police don't really care about the fact they're selling drugs from there. If somebody runs through the house violently and that drug dealer then rings the police and goes, oh gee, they stole, no, it wasn't our drugs, they stole our TV, they stole our TV. If that happens, the police will go after you like they're just a violent offender. Anyway, that aside, this misfit, about 25 years of age, if that, was in a stolen car. And he'd been running around couch surfing as you do when you're a misfit, a true misfit. Couch surfing, bouncing from place to place, on drugs until you're not, until you pass out, then you have as much sleep as you can, back on drugs, it's a pretty hectic lifestyle. Anyway, this guy has passed out in a stolen car that was linked to an armed robbery that this guy did not end up doing. Then what's happened is they've put a caliph, keep a lookout for, a caliph for XYZ. Well, they found XYZ, all right. Now, one of the side effects of too much meth and then when they have this other thing called GHB, juice, if you have a bit too much and it tips over, you're non-comprehendo, mate. You are knocked out for about 2 hours. You'll come back, hey, okay, what the hell, okay, just in time for your next puff to get going again. Welcome to the world of meth and GHB. So, this guy's had some juice and he's caught himself some well-needed rest to avoid going into meth-induced toxic psychosis, no doubt. Carnage, not one bit of argument about the not healthy, productive lifestyle this guy was living. Not one argument there at all. In fact, I'm trying to paint it out, trying to give you an example of how off the rails he would have been. However, when the Gestapo found this kid, because that's what he is, a kid at 20-something, passed out in a stolen car that had been linked to a armed robbery on a drug dealer, They proceeded to pull Fido out the back. So it takes some time. You don't just like, hey, click your fingers and Fido's there. They then proceeded to park quietly, pull Fido out from the back of their car, where they've then all got around this car because he's passed out. No, they didn't call an ambulance. No, you would think that's what a decent, respectable government employee would do, right? No. They opened the door on this stolen car with this passed out, not youth offender, but young offender. They opened the door, let Fido, the attack dog, in, set on attack, then locked him in, locked Fido in the car with the misfit car thief, and then locked the door behind Fido, where the dog then set about chewing, eating him alive. His whole upper arm, he's got no muscles, the back of his upper arm, all his triceps are gone. A large portion of his upper left-hand side of his back muscles, they're all gone. Literally eaten alive by an attack dog. I would love to know how long, like get a dog of that size, then time it, how much flesh this poor kid lost, and then time it for how long they would have had to have left that. Now, the reason I mention that is because I was also making references to the socialism and the comparisons to Nazi Germany, and how we actually have to be careful in Australia, particularly Socialist People's Republic of Victoria, because that is no different to the horror stories of the Gestapo with their attack dogs before the war set out, before the full, the Holocaust. The 1930s, 1936, 1930, the stories coming out were exactly the same as that. A goon squad catching people they didn't like, no, not putting them before a court, doing things like torturing them, with eating them alive with a attack dog. Think about that. Now think about what do you think's going to happen? Do you think there's a chance that the misfits are going to go, all right, no worries, they got one of us? Or do you think they're going to do things like another Wall Street or something? I'm not saying, don't mistake this as defending it. Please do not mistake this as defending it one bit. But what ends up happening with this us and them Neanderthal approach, which is perpetuated by the people who should be rising above it and creating a better culture and being better, basically, if they're not being better, they then create this us and them culture, and you know what happens? It leads to the brave first responder ends up copying it. Some young, brave, trying to do the right thing constable who knows nothing yet, doesn't even know the politics, the ins, the outs, the ups, downs. He just wants to, look, I just thought I'd try and make a difference by doing a good honest job. He ends up, or she ends up copying it. And these rock apes with their hard on running around like they may as well be a patched member of worse than any patched member I've ever seen ever. Never have I heard that from any of the people I've met in my time, the organised crime figures that never have I met that. The worst behaviours I have ever experienced, be it pimping out women, using women in a degrading way, using toddlers, like basically kidnapping children, then using those toddlers as leveraging to get dirty. The worst I've ever heard of or experienced have all come from government employees. And that is one very toxic, one very fucked up, rotten cultured, ingrained fact. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. There's plenty more to come, I can assure you.